Hello guys, we are starting today with 2.8 solving equations by square roots. All right, so here we go. When we do that, we're just learning about a new inverse operation, okay, which is when a variable is squared, like it's x squared, you can square root both sides to solve for the variable. So the inverse operations are squared and square root. They cancel one another out. All right, what you have to watch out for is these equations can have more than one solution. Okay, they can have more than one solution. So again, our steps for solving. You locate the variable, isolate the x squared by using inverse operations to remove the constant and coefficient. So we do the same thing like we've been doing for solving equations. Then we take the square root of both sides, and then you always check the solution. So here we go. Let's work a couple of examples. First thing I do, there's the variable. I'll look to see, does it have a constant or a coefficient? Doesn't have anything added or subtracted to it. It doesn't have a number in front of the x squared other than the one that's understood to be there. So I'm now at the point where I do step 3. I take the square root of both sides. So when I take the square root of both sides, I now end up with, because the squared and the square root cancel one another out, I'm left with x equals the square root of 36. Well, now I think to myself, what numbers can multiply together that are the same that equal 36? That's going to be 6 times 6 equals 36. And negative 6 times negative 6 equals 36. That is why my answer here is going to be x equals positive or negative 6. That is my correct answer. Let me zoom in a little bit more on this. Okay, and now I can check, and we want to check with both solutions. So I'm going to check with 6 squared equals 36. Yep, that's going to give me 36 equals 36. This is true. Then I'm going to check with negative 6 squared. Negative 6 times negative 6 does give me 36 equals 36. This is true as well, so that confirms this is my correct answer. And, excuse me. All right, number 5, moving on down. A does not have anything added or subtracted. The a squared has nothing added or subtracted, and there's no coefficient, so I just take the square root of both sides. When I do this, the squareds cancel. I'm left with a equals 0. Okay. There is no positive or negative 0 because 0 times 0, there cannot be a negative 0. Okay. So something to remember here. There is not a positive 0 or negative 0. It's just 0. And our next example, number 7. This is we're starting adding more to this. Okay, I've got the x squared, but I also have this minus 10 on here. I've got to get the x squared by itself. Okay, remember the first thing you do is get x squared by itself. So I'm going to add 10, draw my equation wall, just like we've been doing. I have to do the inverse. It's subtracting 10, so I have to add 10 to both sides. This zeroes out, and I end up with x squared equals 49. And now I take the square root of both sides and I end up with x equals positive or negative 7. Next examples. Number 9, I'm not adding or subtracting. Now I have a coefficient. This is 3 times w squared, so I have to undo the multiplication by dividing by 3 on both sides. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Now I'm doing 192 divided by 3. I honestly don't know what that is, so I'm going to actually be doing that calculation over here. 3 into 19 6 times, so that's 18. Subtract, bring down my 1, 12. 3 goes into 12 4 times, so this is 64 equals w squared. And now w squared is by itself, so now I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And when I do that, I end up with a positive or negative 8 equals w, because the squareds cancel out, and there is my final answer. Next example. I'm looking at number 10. This is just really just not looking very good. Okay. I'm looking at isolating my variable. That's the k squared. How is it connected to the negative 5? By division. So that means I'm going to multiply by negative 5 on both sides. When I do that, negative 5 divided by negative 5 equals 1. And I'm left with k squared equals negative, that's a positive 100. K squared, to cancel the k squared, I take the square root of each side and I end up with k equals positive negative 100. Now we're going to go and work one where we end up with a fraction as the answer. So we're going to move down to number 15. And oops, it's got a coefficient. It's got a number that's multiplied to the variable squared. So I'm going to divide by 81 to both sides. 81 divided by 81 equals 1. So I'm now going to have n squared. What you notice here, okay, is that we end up with 16 over 81. So off here to the side, notice top and bottom are perfect squares. They're both perfect squares. Okay, that means that when I go to take the square root, yes, I take the square root of the entire thing because that cancels, but I can think of it, when I have it like this, I can think of that as the square root of 16 over the square root of 1881. Okay, so now I'm going to simplify that. That means the square root of 16, that's going to give me 4. The square root of 81 is 9. So therefore, when I do this square root of n squared, n equals positive or negative 4/9. So far, so good. 2 more examples, guys. We can make it through here. All right. Just wanting to make sure you understand, you can have a fraction answer. If you think of this as when it's under one big square root, you can separate it to 2 separate ones. It makes life a little bit easier. Okay, looking down, looking at number 18. This is where we pull in what we've been doing the past couple of days to today. All right. Remember, I got to unwrap the present. I have to do what's farthest away from my variable first. The 21 gets connected to the w squared by addition. So I'm going to subtract 21 from both sides. That equals 0. We bring down the rest and I have w squared divided by 3 equals 48 minus 21, that's going to give me 27. Now I look, how is the 3 connected to the w squared? By division. So that means I'm going to multiply by 3 on both sides to make this equal 1, which means that 3 is gone. So now I have w squared equals 27 times 3, which is 81. And now I need to cancel the squared. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides, which gives me w equals positive negative 9. All right, one more example and then we're done, guys. Okay. Last one, number 19. The reason I'm doing number 19 is because sometimes we get confused and forget, oh, what number is written right here in front of this x squared? That's understood to be a 1. We just don't write it, okay? So again, I'm solving for the x squared. That means I've got to move what's farthest away. So I move the 18 first. I need to make this equal 0. So what do I have to do? I have to subtract 18 from both sides. So I'm going to subtract 18. I bring this down. Now, common mistake. People will just bring down and they'll just write x squared equals negative 169. But I'm going to tell you right now, you've already messed up the problem. Because that's a negative 1x squared. You have to bring the entire thing down. So this is a negative 1. And now I can see, okay, I've got to divide by negative 1 to both sides, and I end up with x squared equals 169. Now I take the square root of both sides, and I end up with x equals positive or negative 13. This is where that list of where we wrote down all the perfect squares is going to come into handy. All right, your job is to finish the notes and the classwork homework. Have a great day.